Let's make something delicious. So for these apple cinnamon butter swim biscuits, you want to start by sauteing your apples. So we have 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter in a skillet, and I am going to add 2 peeled and chopped up apples. Now you can use any variety that you like. I am using Granny Smith's, and I've cut them up very small. They will saute faster that way. They will get nice and soft much faster if you cut them small, but it's up to you. Whatever cranks your tractor. These were large apples. These were very large apples. But that's also up to you how much apple you want in them. Now to this, we are going to add 2 tablespoons of packed light brown sugar and 3/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon. Now you are just going to saute that all together. It will take probably about 5 minutes or so, as small as they are cut. Now if they are cut bigger, it will take you a little bit longer to get them soft. But you want them soft but still with a bite. Now my apples are all soft but still have a tiny little bit of bite in the center, and they are absolutely beautiful, and the whole kitchen smells amazing. So I can imagine how good these biscuits are going to be. So now you want to make sure that your oven is preheated to 425 degrees. I have an 8x8 pan here. You can use an 8x8 or a 9x9. They will be thicker in an 8x8, thinner in a 9x9, so they will cook longer in an 8x8. And I have 1 stick of salted butter in my pan. As you can see, I have my pan lined with parchment paper. That's going to make it much easier on you to get them out of the pan, because they will be harder to get out of the pan if you don't line it. But that's up to you. And I have a little insurance policy under it. I have a cookie sheet lined with some parchment paper in case it starts to splatter out. That way you don't have to clean the oven. That way it just goes on the cookie sheet and you don't have to worry about it. Now this has to go in the oven so that butter can melt while you're mixing the ingredients. So now to mix our ingredients, in this bowl we have 2 1/3 cups of all-purpose flour. We have 1/4 of a cup of packed light brown sugar. We have 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and we have 1 1/3 tablespoons, yes I said tablespoons, of baking powder. Now you want to mix this all together and make sure you break up any lumps in your brown sugar. Brown sugar can be pretty lumpy, so just make sure you work it through and make sure you get out any of those lumps. Now here we have our buttermilk. This is whole milk buttermilk. You can use whatever cranks your tractor, but I personally like whole milk buttermilk. It makes everything taste better. It makes it richer and more flavorful. This is 1 1/3 to 1 1/2 cups. You don't know how much you're going to need. It depends on your atmosphere in your house that day. It depends on a lot of different factors, how dry things are. So I'm going to put in not all of it. I'm going to put in most of it, but I'm going to save a little back just in case I need it. And because these are sweet biscuits, I'm going to add in a teaspoon of vanilla, roughly measured. Now you want to start stirring that together. Now it's going to be very wet. If you've never made butter swim biscuits before, your dough is not like a typical biscuit dough. It is kind of wet because it doesn't have to be rolled out and cut out and all of that stuff. It's just thrown into the pan and patted out. So it's going to be a little wetter than most biscuits that you will make. But as you can see, it still seems a little dry, so I'm going to add just a little bit more of my buttermilk. And just, if you have to add just a little at a time. You don't want to overdo it. So add just a tiny splash at a time. And I'll show you what it looks like when it's at the perfect consistency. Now, as you can see, it's very sticky. It's very, very sticky. Now, even with my regular biscuits, I like my biscuit dough sticky because it makes for moist biscuits. But it's not this sticky with regular cut-out biscuits. You want this nice and sticky. Now, I'm going to add those beautiful apples with all the juices, because the juices are just going to make it better. And your apples are still pretty warm, but that doesn't matter, because it's not like there's an egg or anything in here that it's going to cause problems with. And this smells absolutely amazing. Just get those apple pieces all worked in and all that cinnamon and brown sugar sauce. I can't tell you how amazing these are going to be. Now our butter is all melted and all sizzly and even starting to brown just a little bit, which makes it even better. Now we are going to put our biscuit dough into our butter. Make sure you get all that out of there. You don't want to miss a drop of that. And now you want to spread it out. And yes, the butter is going to come over the top. That's actually what you want it to do. Because these are butter swim biscuits. Because they're swimming in butter. Now they are going to absorb a lot of this butter. But this is the reason that I told you to take out the insurance policy and put it on the put a pan on the bottom. Otherwise, you may be cleaning your oven. Now this part is optional. Some people will do it with butter swim biscuits, some people won't. I personally would rather cut them. That way all the butter can start seeping down between them, and they're much easier to break apart into biscuits when they're done. So I just cut them in 9 pieces. And now I'm going to pop them into my 425 degree preheated oven and let them bake until they're no longer doughy. Now while these are finishing up in the oven, let's make a little glaze for them. We have 1 cup of powdered sugar. To that we are going to add about a half a teaspoon, if I can contain myself, of vanilla extract, roughly measured of course. And with making a glaze, it's always up in the air how much it's going to take. So it could be anywhere from 2 to 5 tablespoons of milk. Start out slow. Start out with about 1.5 to 2. And stir and basically keep adding just a little bit at a time until it is just the consistency that you want it. And as you can see, I'm definitely going to have to add some more, but just a splash at a time, not even a full tablespoon at a time, just a little splash at a time, because it can go from being perfect to being too wet very quickly. And if it gets too wet, you can always add more powdered sugar to thicken it back up. But remember, as you add more powdered sugar, it gets sweeter and sweeter. And so you want to err on the side of adding too little liquid and it being too dry to it being too wet. Now you know it's right when you raise your spoon up and it falls in a nice ribbon and stays in the bowl in shape and doesn't melt as quickly. It will melt back into it, but not as quickly. Some people even do a figure 8, and if you can still see the end of the 8 by the time it's done, then you're good. So we're good right now. Now by the time they come out, it may be a little thick and we may have to add a little bit more, but right now it seems perfect. These beauties are out of the oven, and see, they're nice and springy. And they're nice and golden brown on top. They will be a little darker brown on the bottom, but not as brown as a regular butter swim biscuit, which I do in cast iron. They baked for between 25 and 30 minutes. Depends on your oven. Mine baked pretty much right at 30 minutes. Now, what I do before I glaze them is I go ahead and cut. Go ahead and make the cuts along the score lines. That way the glaze can seep down between each biscuit. That makes for better biscuits. Now, it's up to you. You don't have to do this, but it will make for much better biscuits. Now, our glaze is still at perfection right now, so we are going to start drizzling this glaze on. Drizzle it on however you want. You can just spread the whole thing, the whole top with glaze, or you can just drizzle like I am. I prefer more of a drizzle because I like less glaze than more glaze, and that's also up to you how much glaze you choose to put on. I had you make a bigger batch in case you want more glaze, but if you want less glaze like we do, stop there. So now this should be really easy for you to get out of the pan and enjoy. Just let them cool a little bit. You do not want to burn your mouth. And come back next time to Angela K's Kitchen, where I take you from gourmet to everyday and everything in between. God bless.
Look at that beautiful beautiful butter Swim biscuit. Can't go wrong with butter Swim biscuits. Wow. Amazing. I'm blown away, honestly. They're so good. These are phenomenal biscuits. Beautiful flavor. Great apple cinnamon flavor. Nice biscuit. You can hold it in your hand. It's not too hot, so it's not going to fall apart. Perfect butter Swim biscuits from Angela K. She's a heck of a cook, y'all.